Hey everyone, so we have some time before lunch, so we are just going to be working on some health checks and hoof trims. We have a printout list here that's from our wonderful resident database, which is like a online system that keeps track of all of our residents' healthcare and their schedules and all their healthcare notes. So on this list we have Catherine showing up as being due for a hoof trim, so we're going to get her done before lunch today. So all of our residents are on a 6-week schedule. So that means every 6 weeks, every resident gets a full health check. For goats and sheep, that includes a hoof trim. And then for the goats and sheep, every 3 weeks, they also get an additional hoof trim. So Catherine will get a hoof trim today. Another 3 weeks, she'll have a full health check, including a hoof trim, and then just a hoof trim 3 weeks after that, if that makes sense. That's kind of the schedule that we've worked out that we find works best for us and our residents. We like to keep a really close eye on the hoof care for the pigs and the goats and sheep, just to make sure that everyone is wearing their hoofs down properly, catch any issues before they turn major, especially since we have an aging population, so they're often not wearing down their hooves as quickly as we'd like them to. So yeah, we're gonna go do Catherine. So we have the nippers here that we use for taking off big pieces of hoof. And then the hoof boss, which is basically a mini angle grinder that we use to wear down the hooves and get them nice and flat and even. Goats and sheep, especially goats, really like to get involved with everything. So just to keep everything safe, make sure that nobody's getting into cords or the hoof trim bag or anything, we keep her in a controlled space. We have a halter on her. She is really, really good. Yeah. So since we do the trims on the goats and sheep every 3 weeks, that allows us to basically, mostly these trims are just kind of maintenance, just to make sure that the hooves are maintained. You're free. Just to make sure that the hooves are maintained at a nice length, and we can catch problems before they start. Things that we're looking out for is the hooves not wearing down properly or growing too long, especially growing out kind of at the toes or the wall of the hoof actually starting to grow too long underneath and curling underneath the pad. We're looking for things like hoof rot, which we can see more frequently in kind of the wet spring and fall months when there's increased mud outside. If the goats and sheep are standing in more wet, like more mud and more wet bedding, they can be prone to getting some hoof rot. Occasionally we have seen, like a hoof abscess or a little injury. Thankfully, because we're looking at their feet so frequently, we're able to catch those before they become a huge issue. So if we need to start any treatments, like under the recommendation of our vets, like antibiotics or a foot soak or a foot bandage, we can start that early on. So thankfully we haven't had too many serious hoof issues with the goats and sheep here. And again, like we're doing mostly just maintenance for them, but we have had some residents who've been rescued with their hooves in really bad condition. So for example, Pixie, Hazel, and Zoe, when they were first rescued, their hooves were very overgrown, so they were kind of growing upwards at the toes like little slippers, and then underneath they were extremely overgrown as well. So they needed quite a few trims to kind of get them to a good spot. Same with Gilbert and Elmer. When they first got here, their hooves were extremely long, and they were not fond of us touching their feet or doing their trims. So we took our time with them doing more frequent smaller trims, first just with the nippers and then kind of gradually working up to the hoof boss, that power tool. And now both of those boys have excellent hooves and they're very tolerant of their hoof trims as well. So yes, hoof care is something that we're always thinking about and doing almost every day here at the sanctuary.